Baseball, we have a problem. Let's talk about it, Will. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 76 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pite, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Dude, it has been a wild week of baseball. But before we get into all that, how are you doing?
Doing good. It has been a crazy week. Lots of kind of ups and downs, and I think we're going to hit on some of those today in our episode, which is okay. Random topic: my Arkansas Razorbacks got a basketball coach. Welcome, Coach Cal.
Dude,
never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I am kind of excited about it. So here we go.
Yeah, man. Monday, right? It was so odd. Breaking news, and the title game was that night between Purdue and UConn.
Yep.
And nobody was talking about it, it felt like, because everybody's
talking about Arkansas.
Yeah, pretty cool. I didn't realize the Arkansas coach went to USC.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a lateral move. I don't know, but
yeah. He went back home. I appreciate what he did for Arkansas, but looking forward to the next chapter.
Dude, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. Watch him show up in a blue tie by accident. Oh, sorry. Habit, Memphis, Kentucky. Sorry.
Right.
You guys want to change your colors at all? No, it's, dude, that is very exciting. Hopping back onto the diamond, guys. We're going to get rolling with a little breaking news. Then we'll hit the standings, do our fancy heat check. So you had a bad day kind of combo. This is something that I'm really getting into. And then we hit the grill, which the grill is a little bit of a bummer. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, you probably can guess what we're going to talk about. It's just kind of the state of pitching in our game right now. It's just not where it needs to be. And then the Roman Candle pick-to-click player of the week, guys. Stick around because it's a doozy, all right? And it's week one, so we forget about last year. This is a new year, new me. It's going to be great, okay? And we'll see who – somebody's up 1-0. You got to wait till the end to find out, okay?
Yeah.
I think there'll be a discussion. I really do. Okay, but some breaking news, man, and this is probably something that we all expected in the baseball realm of things. Jackson Holliday, the top prospect in Major League Baseball, is making his debut right now. It is Wednesday night, and he's in Boston. He's playing second base, batting ninth for the Orioles. This is a move that I think surprised a lot of people when he got shipped back to AAA. And we can talk about service time manipulation, this, that, and the other, but he was down there for like 10 games, and now he's up with the big club, and he just fits right in, dude. What does this do for the talent-saturated Orioles?
Oh, man. Rich get richer, right? I mean, I would say this is very significant. I think that, when you're talking about top 100 prospects, obviously there's a lot of, just about every team has at least a couple of top 100 prospects. And, even like these are the best of the best. And, even some of those guys, when they get up to the major leagues, they're not ready, or they don't really make a splash. But when you're talking about the number one overall prospect in all of baseball, like those guys are different. Yeah. And, by all accounts, obviously he's playing his first game tonight, and anything could happen. But given his pedigree, given the fact that his dad's Matt Holliday, this guy's been on Major League Baseball's radar for a while, even though he's, 19? Mm-hmm. To answer your question, though, about the Orioles, man, it like I said, the rich get richer. I mean, I expect there to be a slight learning curve as he adjusts to Major League pitching. It is a different level. Mm-hmm. But, man, everywhere he has gone, he has just hit missiles.
Yeah.
And the thing is he's not one of these guys that's relying on power. Like, he is a gap-to-gap, just pure hitter by all accounts. And so, anyways, I think he's going to fit into that lineup really well. I think they've got him hitting 8th or 9th tonight, but I expect if he starts producing here over the next few weeks, I expect him to climb up that batting order and eventually be maybe a leadoff or two-hole hitter. We'll see where he slots in. So this is exciting. I can't wait to see how he plays out. It looks like he's going to play full-time second base pretty much for Baltimore. And so I'm just excited to see how this plays out. But I definitely, just like what most people are saying, I have very high expectations. I think he's going to be a great, great player for a long time.
Yep, dude, it's a great call. Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit with
Yeah.
this kid. I mean, I don't know, man. I picture him when he was drafted, and I was like, look at this little toddler,
Yes.
and maybe it's like me cruising towards 30
Yeah.
or whatnot, but you see him tonight in the dugout in Fenway. I was like, that's a grown man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's beefed up. He's done what he needed to do. He spent all of 155 games over 2 seasons in the minors, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just taking care of business throughout. And so it couldn't happen to a better guy. And I'm psyched for him, man. You saw all kinds of videos on Twitter or X of him and Matt Holliday. Like when he was a little kid, Matt Holliday had him on the field when he won the
Mm-hmm.
pennant 2007 in Colorado. He's holding them, and it was just like, this is pretty neat, man. It's one
Mm-hmm.
of those kind of like life moments. And sure enough, the whole family's sitting front row by the
Yep.
dugout in Fenway. So, just root for the kid. And I know that he's not out there in fantasy leagues. He is one of the prospects that very highly drafted. So if you took that shot, if you spent that draft capital, it's time to pay dividends, and let's see what happens, Will.
And
Dude,
just to close the books on that, you don't see guys this young rise through the up into the major leagues this quickly.
mm-hmm.
Like it is crazy how quickly he has gotten to the majors, and
Yep.
that's impressive. Like I hate to bring up the name, but it reminds me a lot of Wander Franco with the Rays from
Mm-hmm.
a year or two ago. Same kind of thing. And so at least on the baseball field, feels like that kind of a player to me.
Sure. Yeah, the glove's there too. So
Yeah,
he could play shortstop, but they got him pegged at second base because obviously you
Gunner.
got you got Gunner, man. This is it's going to be a middle infield to not be trifled with, and don't have to go far. AAA, that Kobe Mayo
Yeah,
is crushing the ball. This
and
Baltimore team,
Kierstead.
there's no room for these players
Yeah,
on the big league squad. So it's pretty wild. It's going to be very interesting. I feel like the Burns deal is supposed to like consolidate some prospects and make it a little bit easier, but they just tossed 2 guys that probably weren't going to get any time anyway.
correct.
So it's like go trade for, I don't know,
Whoever.
somebody else. Yeah. It's going to be wild, dude. They are, as 2 AL East fans, we might be looking up at them for a while. I don't
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But currently they're looking up at the New York Yankees as we move into a
Mhm.
little standings recap. The Yankees might be for real, Will, 10-2. We're going to look at the East here. And then you got the Red Sox 7-4, that pitching staff carrying them so far this season. It's early. It's early. Baltimore at 6-4. Just talked about them. Tampa Bay 7-6. And then you got the Blue Jays 6-7. That's the East. And, everybody's pretty competitive. As we move to the Central, 8-3. Guardians, didn't have that on my bingo card. Let's see. We got the Tigers 7-4. Royals 7-4, doing the dang thing. Minnesota Twins 4-6. Yikes. The White Sox 2-9. Sorry about that, Chicago. Moving on to the West, you want to talk about a bunch of teams that just need to figure out who they are. The Texas Rangers 6-5 in first. You got the LA Angels 6-6. Skidding a little bit, two-game loser right now. Got the Mariners 5-8. The Oakland 4-7. Congratulations, Oakland. You're not in last because the Houston Astros are currently 4-8, holding down the bottom spot. It's early. Don't worry. But listen, Will, American League, buddy, what are you thinking?
It is really interesting hearing some of these standings updates.
It's like too early to talk about it.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I would just say, you mentioned it. I think the Yankees are for real. They're doing all this without Garrett Cole. They're doing this without Aaron Judge getting really hot. I just feel like the addition. Obviously, we've talked so much about Juan Soto, and obviously that's a huge addition. But look at some of the off the radar additions that they've made. Like Alex Verdugo's played well so far. Marcus Stroman has been really good. Guys like that. Rodon looks a little bit better. I don't know that he's back to a couple of years ago, Rodon, but he's looked a little bit better. But and you're going to talk about this guy, I think, more here in a little bit. But Anthony Volpe, he might be the key to this whole deal. He looks like the guy that they would not trade these
Right.
past few years. You know, there was a reason that the Yankees did not part with this guy because they had every opportunity to in
Mm-hmm.
years past in order to get a veteran to help them make a playoff push, but they wouldn't. And I tell you what, Volpe looks the part, man. He looks really, really good. He's actually batting leadoff tonight, and to be honest with you, I think he'll stay there
Yeah.
based on what he's showed us. So
Yeah.
I think the Yankees are for real. Central might be the most, just top to bottom, the most improved division in baseball. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's a long way to go. I don't think there's a superstar team in the Central, but I think they're all going to be fairly competitive, other than the White Sox.
Sure.
And then West, let's see how the West plays out. I mean, I think the Angels and the A's will, find their way to the bottom.
Yeah.
But I'm really surprised that obviously the Astros have struggled this badly coming out of the gates, but I'm also really surprised at Seattle, how they've kind of struggled. It
Yeah.
looks kind of like same old Seattle, like the offense just can't carry the load, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not going to lie about Seattle right now, but
Yeah.
obviously we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, we sweep a lot of time away talking about Seattle. I mean, you start on the offensive side, and Julio
Yeah.
Rodriguez has been
Bad.
pretty tough. Bad, really bad. And then Luis Castillo can't seem to piece together a solid start. I mean, he hasn't gotten ripped up, but he's, you drafted him as probably an SP1 if you did.
Right.
And he has not performed. And speaking of not performing, before
and George Kirby's been kind of
exactly
off.
That's where I was going, dude. He looks. Yeah. I don't know. I can't tell if he is kind of who we thought he was going to be. And listen, it's 3 starts, and one of them was really solid. But the last 2 have been awful. And so you're looking at a guy who, like, did we gas him up a little bit too much in the preseason? And I know obviously this is so early, and he will come back down to, he's going to be really solid. But is he a fantasy ace? I don't know. We've talked about it a lot. We texted back and forth. It's almost like he's too much in the strike zone, and I kind of figured Cleveland was going to have their way because they just have a bunch of hitterish guys, and but he's just not missing bats. He's not missing bats, but I thought, Toronto, obviously they have a solid lineup, but there's definitely some holes, and it's just more of the same, dude. And I don't know. Seattle, dude, you're correct. I mean, 5-8, the offense has looked, flaccid, for lack of a better word. It just has not. It hasn't been a good product. Yep, that's all I got, man. In the West. Hey, moving on to the NL, dude. This is, no surprise looking at the East. You got the Braves up top, 7-3 in their first 10. Phillies are 6-6. Check that strength of schedule though. You got the Nationals 5-7, the Mets 4-7. And then Miami 1-11. Now they are barreling towards their second win tonight in the Bronx. So we'll see if they can hand the ball to Tanner Scott and, he not absolutely blow it like he has all year. Keep it tuned in, guys. Maybe by the end of the episode, we can let you know. In the Central, the Pirates 9-3, they're still raising the Jolly Roger. Very exciting. The Brewers 7-3 as well. Cubs 7-4 coming out A-OK. Reds 6-5 and Cardinals 6-7 in last there. St. Louis, Sonny Gray came back and looked okay. In the West, the Dodgers 10-5, and then everybody else under 500. Will the 6-7 D-backs, 6-8 Padres, 5-8 Giants, and 3-10 Rockies. But man, that's a pretty stadium. What are you taking away from the NL?
It's really interesting. I feel like the National League's already kind of filling out a little bit, sort of the way we thought it would. The only real surprises to me, at least so far, and obviously we're 2 weeks in, I would say number one, the Central, I think, is sort of like the AL Central. I feel like there's a little bit better teams top to bottom than maybe I thought they were going to be. The Brewers seem to be a little bit better than what I thought they were going to be. I still worry about that pitching and how it's going to hold up long term, but the lineup's definitely better. I would also say in the West, I'm a little bit surprised that the Giants are off to such a rough start. I thought the Giants would be the team, especially with those late offseason additions, I didn't necessarily think they'd win the division over the Dodgers, but I feel like they might be I don't know, the nearest competitor, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, a long way to go, but the start is not great.
Yeah.
So that's really my biggest takeaway. I mean, obviously, we thought Atlanta, Philly in the East, and that feels like how it's going to play out. And
Yeah.
the Central is totally up for grabs. Obviously, Pittsburgh got off to a hot start, and then LA is kind of doing their thing. So let's see how this thing plays out. But National League is going to be fun. I feel like, especially that Central Division.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I think going in, we probably thought there were going to be 3 teams coming out of the East.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's only going to be 2. And it's going to be Philly and Atlanta. And then the Central, I mean, any of these guys, I can see there's a lane for everybody there. So, this core 3 in the West, the meat of this division, obviously, where the Dodgers and Rockies are going to be. That's going to be like one of the most interesting things to watch.
Yes.
You saw for San Francisco, Blake Snell make his debut. A little bit of things to love, a little bit of things that are like, okay, this is kind of what we thought he would be. But, the stuff is still nasty for that guy. So we'll see. Dylan Cease did the dang thing again. 6 innings pitch, quality start tonight. Diamondbacks, Merrill Kelly doing his thing. So, dude, there are lanes for all these teams. I think it's going to be tight all year. It's very exciting.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, hey, dude, here's what I agree on, man. We are going to talk about some super hot players right now. Oh, my goodness gracious. Will, if you were chilly over there, now you're all warm because it's time for the Heat Check Player of the Week, buddy.
That's right. So I'm going to go, obviously this team has struggled out of the gates and it's well documented, but this guy has not. Yordan Alvarez, basically in the last 6 or 7 games, he has 4 multi-hit games. He had two different 4-hit games, and then another 3-hit game, and he's had a total of 4 home runs over the past 6 games. I would say that that's a pretty darn good week. The Astros just need to get going around him, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. Dude, he is it's hard to look at him and not say best pure hitter. I mean, there's guys like Juan Soto. It's probably a conversation between the two, but watching a lot of Houston games and just watching kind of the way it never feels like he's not in control, and it always feels like if you're a batter, you're relying on what the pitcher's going to give you, and you're trying to see, what's it look like off the hand, what can I do with what he's giving me. Yordan, it almost looks the opposite. It's like, okay, I'm going to hit this, try to miss my bat. And he was a tick-off in the Yankees series. We talked about it. He got 3 hits off of Cole Reagans, okay, who didn't have his A stuff, but he was still pretty solid. But lefty-lefty matchup. Yordan has no splits. He's freaking solid. I mean, rotisserie-wise, he is as elite a 4-category contributor as there is in the game. I mean, it's him and Soto, and they're not going to steal anything, but man, everything else you can almost count on. Not a lot of 0 for games,
Right.
So yeah, dude, I love that pick, and I think he's just getting warmed up now. He's got to stay healthy, but a lot to love. My guy, I got to raise my hand, man. Anthony Volpe. He's been tearing it up in New York, but this week, this year to start the year, 11 for 30, 2 doubles, a home run, 3 steals. I was beyond wrong about this kid, man. If you listen to our episodes, we had players to target, players to avoid, and I put him on my avoid list because I just didn't think he was ready. I still thought he was a year away. He was clearly outmatched last year. Will and I have talked about it a lot. It was easy to see. He had this uppercut swing because that's what they were teaching Judge to do, kind of lean back and launch. And that's what they were teaching him. And he was getting exposed high in the zone with the upper fastball. They've leveled that out this year. He's putting the ball in play and letting his pop, do the talking. He's got the speed when he gets on. And this dude's looked really, really good for the Yankees. And like you said, man, I loved it. He might be the piece that makes this team go.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a difference maker, man. Like you just think about a guy who, as you mentioned, struggled most of last year and was basically a hole in that lineup. And now he looks to be one of the difference makers. And now when you add Soto in there, Verdugo, I mean, all of a sudden the Yankees has gone from kind of a one-man show in Aaron Judge these past few seasons to
Yeah.
having a legit deep lineup, especially if a guy like Giancarlo Stanton and Anthony Rizzo can stay healthy and productive most of the year. I mean, this could be a scary lineup, headlined by Judge, Soto, Volpe,
Yeah.
Torres, and those veterans.
Yeah. And you mentioned it before we hit record. Just tonight, he is batting leadoff, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Gleyber Torres' job to lose, and that's exactly what he did. He's been pretty awful to start the year.
Yeah.
You put Volpe up there. He's already scored 10 runs this year, batting out of the 5-6 spot. This guy might crack 100 runs.
Yep.
That is invaluable in fantasy, especially for where you were drafting him.
Yep.
In like the middle rounds. And so, if you took a shot on his upside, you believed in the pedigree, you're getting rewarded, man. And I'm excited for anybody who did it because you just want to root for the kid. I mean, he had the world placed on his shoulders last year. Everybody was comparing him to Jeter. Oh, you're 21. You're going to be the shortstop in the Bronx for the rest of your career. And he's filling those cleats right now. It's very cool to see, man. And even as a Red Sox fan, you just can't help but root for him.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be exciting. Not everybody crushes it in life, though, and that's okay, Will, because sometimes. Because you had a bad day, you take one down. Dude, that might be my favorite. You just listen to the song, you immediately love the song. It's great. Sometimes you have a tough day, man, and that's okay. We still love you, but we are going to call you out on it, buddy. Take it away.
Man, I tell you what, what's funny about this topic is I actually really like this topic. I think it's fun, but it's amazing how many guys that you can like legitimately put into this segment, especially when you're looking at like a kind of a small sample size.
Yeah.
But man, I'm going to go with a guy and I don't know. I hate to do it, but man, I loved this guy a few years ago. I mean, you talk about a guy that I really legitimately thought this guy was going to be an MVP candidate for better part of a decade when he was in Chicago. And it's Kris Bryant, man. Kris Bryant, I don't know if it's injuries that have just taken its toll. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or a combination of both. But you talk about a guy who sadly looks like a shell of himself, and he's really not that old, is Kris Bryant. Yeah. Like, I watch him. I don't watch a ton of Rockies games, but like I'll see him sometimes. He just doesn't look like the same player from a couple of years ago. Currently he's batting just over 100. Just looks lost in most of his at bats. Not really hitting the ball hard when he does make contact. And so, anyways, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I really would love to see him kind of figure it out again. But man, he just does not look right. He hasn't looked right ever since he got to Colorado. I know he's dealt with injuries, but man, let's just see if he can turn this thing around because it is not pretty right now.
Dude, it's ugly. I mean, you love the guy because of what he did for Chicago, and he'll never buy a beer there again, but it's hard not to look at the $182 million over 7 years for the Rockies. Not saying it's like the biggest money grab in Major League Baseball history because he could have went to – I don't know if this is true. I've never played competitive baseball, at any kind of level that's important. But, it's almost like Javi Baez. You see him when he plays in the World Baseball Classic and he has this extra juice and he's raw, he's rah-rahing up the guys and – he's actually making contact with the ball. I wonder if he doesn't go to a contender. Maybe this isn't, you can't ever injuries, who knows? But when he went to Colorado, it's like, okay, he's going to hit the ball far. Maybe not that much counting stats because like who else is there other than Charlie Blackmon? Right. And it's just been terrible. It's been terrible. He has looked awful. almost since he put on the jersey for the
Yeah.
Rockies. And
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. It's sad because, he won that MVP, I think, in 2016, and he was a guy. I mean, I didn't play fantasy baseball back then, but I guarantee he was a first-round pick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It just doesn't feel like the same player. Like it just feels like a totally different player, even though it's the same guy. And
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, I thought as soon as he got to Colorado, I was like, well, Colorado might not win that many games, but my gosh, he's going to put up amazing stats, hitting in Colorado for half the games, but it's just been far from the case. So
yep.
We'll see.
Strap in, Rockies fans, because he'll be your 3-4 hitter for the next 7 years. So I don't know. I feel bad, but it's where we're at, and he's paid handsomely. He's probably I don't know. Beer's a big thing out there, right? Maybe he's a beer guy. I don't know.
Well, it's Coors Field.
That is true. Yeah, he's that's so good. Oh my gosh. Hey, moving on to my had a bad day player, Vinny P, baby. This is it's getting a little uncomfortable, even 10, 11, 12 games in. This guy, 108 is his average. All right. And he scored 4 runs. He's had 0 extra base hits until this very moment. 10 minutes ago, he hit a home run. First home run of the year. He's got a notification on my phone. So maybe that's why we do this. Okay. We put you on the had a bad day segment. Then you pop off. Okay. So maybe I can unglue this young man from the bench in my fantasy leagues, because he was the first baseman. It was either him or Casas, and he was the first baseman. Then I was like, okay, they're going to fall. That's okay. This guy will be great. I'm not out on him. I think the potential's still there, but it does feel like a guy that I might have a little bit shorter leash on, just depending on the size of the league, of course, because we really haven't seen him before. He's really not proven. He's come up for a cup of coffee, in 2022, 72 games, had a pretty solid 295 average, 10 home runs, 26 RBIs. And then, kind of off and on last year with injury, obviously he left for the second half of the year. So I don't know. We'll see. The contact stuff's still there. That's the good thing, right? I mean, he still has the same number of walks as he does strikeouts, but or at least the plate discipline rather. But the contact has looked weird. It's almost like he's not in sync yet. But say it with me, Will. It's
still early, but
that's what I'm talking
there's
about.
still cause for concern.
Yep, cause for pause, as you like to say.
Yes, cause for pause.
So here's my yeah.
I was just going to jump in real quick. I echo everything you said. My big thing, and I'm glad you mentioned this, is let's not pretend that he's done this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years before, because he really hasn't. And so, I'll say this. I think the injury, so he's coming off of a major injury last year. Let's not forget that. And I think that injury really, really probably came at a horrible time for him, because he was just starting to get his sea legs under him, so to speak, at the major league level. Obviously, he had some success early on, albeit a limited sample size. But, man, that injury happened quick last year, and he was out the whole year. And so it's almost like whatever confidence and momentum that he had going during that first, let's just say, half a season at the major league level, basically you just bring it to a screeching halt. Yeah. And so now, not only is he coming off a major injury, figuring out what his body now can handle and getting back adjusted, getting confidence back in that shoulder or whatever it was, and now he's trying to having to get his timing back and learn major league pitching all over again, it feels like. So I say all that to say there's concern here. But let's give him a little bit of leash. Let's see if he can get his timing back. But if this strings out another few weeks, it is definitely panic time.
Yep. Yeah, dude, my favorite replacement, had to put it on the sheet because I am the president of his fan club, Alex Kirilloff. Okay,
yes,
Twins.
You are.
Dude, he's on all my teams. He's 19% rostered. I think I'm like 9% of that. Okay. He's a stud hitter, man. He just can't stay healthy. You can throw him in the Buxton, Royce Lewis, Correa twins bucket. So let's see what happens. But for right now in Yahoo's first baseman, left field, right field eligibility, so that's very helpful. And he's out there. So go get it while it lasts, man. The injury bug's gonna bite. So I would soak this up. I think he's batting like 355. So he's pretty solid. Honorable mention to David Bednar, man. He blew his third save of the season on Monday. He was dealing with the lat in spring training. I don't know if that's still bugging him. The velo doesn't seem to be down, but I don't know what the problem is. But listen to these numbers because they're pretty tough. 12.46 ERA, a 1.62 WHIP, 6 earned runs, and 4.1 innings pitched. He only gave up 15 earned runs in 67.1 innings last year. You can't drop him, but is he riding the bench for right now? I mean, what are you doing with this guy?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, I would say at this point you would need to see him pitch a relatively clean inning or two at least, before feeling really confident about putting him in your starting lineup if you play fantasy baseball. But this is one of the, in my opinion, I mean, I know he goes under the radar because he's played in Pittsburgh for so long, but this is one of the elite closers in the game that maybe some people have not really watched that much. But, I mean, this guy, when he is on, is legit. And so I hate to see him struggle out of the gate like this. And plus, now they've got Aroldis Chapman. So it just feels like that the leash could be shorter just because you've got a name like that behind you. Yeah. And so I hope that he turns it around because he is very, very good. And so I'm honestly shocked at how bad he's been so far. I've got to believe that something is bothering him injury wise.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned him, but any interest in Aroldis Chapman, who has looked great to start, hasn't allowed an earned run in 4.1 innings, and is only 45% rostered? I mean, if he out there, you drop in your worst pitcher potentially to maybe get a guy who can grab some saves for the first place Central teams. Okay,
I would. If you're in a a league that values saves, as most leagues do, especially if you're in a non-holds league, then yes. I mean, Aroldis Chapman might not have the 104 mile an hour fastball anymore, but he can still get really big time hitters out. And he's actually looked really, really good so far and really sharp. So now don't be surprised if he has a clunker here and there coming up. But for now, given what Bednar is doing, absolutely, I would go get him especially in a deeper league.
Yep. I agree with you, man. I put fab bids on him in 5x5 roto leagues just because I think at some point, I don't know, Bednar is going to lose the job. I'm just not convinced he's healthy. And then you're looking at a situation where this is obviously the guy. Pretty hilarious that Bednar was their closer and was lights out for all those years when they were winning like 70 games. And now they're like looking ready to compete. And now he looks tough. That's a bummer. But,
dude, real quick,
talk to me.
Dude, the Pirates might be legit.
Dude, they are
what I love about this team is they can pitch, man. You've got Jared Jones, man. I love what I've seen so far out of him. Paul Skeens, they can't touch him in AAA. I have to believe he's going to come up at some point in the early summer, especially if they keep up what they're doing. And I have to believe Mitch Keller is going to be better than what he's shown so far. His start just the other night was much better. So if they get some legitimate starting pitching like what they are showing, dude, this could be a tough out in the NL Central.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun group to watch with Cruz and Reynolds, and then like everything you said about that pitching staff, and Skeens is the wild card. So we're going to learn a lot about this organization and their thirst for winning. Like, do you really want to go for it? Because I got to believe he's ready. I kind of feel like, I don't know, man, Skeens could just come in and just, I don't know, it'd be like groundbreaking for this team. And so I'm super excited about it. Things I'm not excited about. Okay. Usually this is like my favorite segment. We're moving on to what's on the grill with Will. This is just Bummersville, man. Hug your loved ones, kiss your babies. Here we go. Let's dive in, Will. We got to talk about it. We've avoided it long enough. Strider goes out on Saturday with some elbow discomfort following his second start of the year versus the D-backs. MRI showed UCL damage. Timeline is pending. As far as I know, there still hasn't been a timeline. I checked this morning. He's going for further evaluation. I mean, he's the Cy Young front runner in the NL. He's going to miss some time. He's on the 15-day IL, but there's been no concrete. This is when to expect him to throw again. This is a guy who is the SP1 in fantasy baseball, just for those managers out there who drafted him early. And I guess I can throw Shane Bieber in here. We'll talk about him in a second. But if you lost those guys, how are you trying to pick up the pieces right now?
I mean, the problem is you can't. Because if seriously, like you can't go on waivers and get a guy that can even come close to replacing Strider, much less, or even Shane Bieber, much less Strider. Mm-hmm. And and I mean, what you have to do is you have to kind of do a committee approach. Like you're gonna have to, evaluate who are the guys that I have left on my team. Who now is my quote unquote ace of my staff? Mm-hmm. Do I need to go out and make a trade? Do I need to pick up a couple of guys off waivers? What do I need to do? You basically have to reevaluate your pitching part of your roster when guys like this go down. And so obviously it's not an ideal situation, but you figure out a way to get through it. But to your point, there's no way to replace these guys off of waivers right now. And so you just got to kind of do the best you can and figure out the pivot to the lane that works best for your team moving forward,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're not going to go on waivers and find, especially now. I would say,
right.
If you took a shot on like, okay, you said Jared Jones. He looks a little bit Strider-like. Like he's got the fastball that rides and that nasty breaking ball. Obviously, different tiers, but they look very similar. Crochet. There's guys out there on waivers. I would jump to the buy lows. It's a little bit of a risk, but Kevin Gausman got lit up. You got George Kirby, Luis Castillo. I mean, knock on some doors. People are going to understand why you're coming to them, but if you can give them a solid deal, that would be my best idea. Obviously, don't torch your offense, but if you drafted well enough, there ought to be some strengths you can dive into, and I mean, you lose him for the whole season. That's different than Garrett Cole. We're going to talk about, a list of pitchers, I guess, but it's just kind of hanging in and especially in head to head, just trying to play the matchup week to week, and I don't want to say it's a good thing because it's not. It's terrible. I mean, even outside of fantasy, this is devastating for baseball. And I mean, we're going to get into that too. But it does kind of free you up a little bit to like, okay, just go crazy, like do something crazy on the waivers because, you have a roster spot that was held down by this stalwart. Well, now you can be a little bit of a wild card. But I would say, I mean, it's tough, but I would say try and buy low on some guys.
And one other thing real quick I would add is if your league has IL spots, go get a guy take a shot on a guy like Robbie Ray, who's coming back kind of mid-season. Guys that are currently on the IL that are supposed to come back later in the season.
Is supposed to make his first start on Saturday. If he's out there, I mean, he shouldn't be in like bigger leagues, but if he is, I'd grab him.
Yeah, just take a shot on guys like that. You don't have anything to lose, especially if it's an IL spot. And so I would say take a shot on proven guys like that just to see if they come back and recapture some old form.
Yep. So I mentioned him, Shane Bieber, also out for the year, heading for Tommy John. This also happened on Saturday. This one was out of the blue because on Friday night we heard a little bit of something on Strider dealing with some elbow soreness, but then you get a breaking news alert. I figured it was going to be Strider. Nope, you did not read that wrong. Shane Bieber, after having two absolute nasty starts, man, this guy was like cruising 2-0, didn't give up an earned run, .29 whip or .92 whip, 20 Ks, two starts, headed for Tommy John. He looked really sharp in his final start of 24, and I don't know, man. It almost feels like it's a matter of time for these guys. People are falling left and right. Here is a list of MLB pitchers dealing with UCL issues. You got Lucas Giolito. The Red Sox signed him. Sandy Alcantara. Obviously, we found out about that last year. Yuri Perez. In the middle of last week, we found out that, nope, he's not going to make a comeback. He's out until at least next year, probably middle of next year. Garrett Cole dealing with the UCL stuff. Only guy on this list that might come back. Jonathan Loizaga for the Yankees, and then Shane McClanahan. These are stars in our game that we're losing. And it's wild, man. Let's get into it because baseball has a problem. We have got to adjust. People, this is what we're looking at, man. And this was so disheartening to me to see the players and the league go at each other. I don't know how much you read about this, Will, or saw about it, but
yeah,
the players are pointing to the pitch clock. Here's a quote from Tony Clark. He's the executive director. He said, despite unanimous player opposition and significant concerns regarding health and safety, the commissioner's office reduced the length of the pitch clock last December, just one season removed from imposing the most significant rule change in decades. Since then, our concerns about health impacts of reduced recovery time have also intensified. And then you have the league coming out and saying this. They retorted, citing an increase in pitching injuries over the last 30 years, and that Tommy John has actually decreased in the minors since 22, which is when they started testing the pitch clock. This statement, this is their quote, this statement ignores the empirical evidence and much more significant long-term trend over multiple decades of velocity and spin increases that are highly correlated with arm injuries. Here's the thing, and we talked about this a lot. I'm going to kick it to you here in a second. I think the league is right on the issue, but I think it's such a big problem that they're like coming at each other. I think that was the biggest surprise. Instead of saying like, "Hey, this is a problem. Let's work together." It basically started an argument, and I don't know what solution that would breed. I know I pitched a lot to you on this, but just in a question, like, what do you think the biggest problem is?
I mean, basically what you're saying is a huge issue. I mean, and that's been the problem whenever the collective bargaining agreement comes up. You know, the players and the owners in baseball have always been at one another's throat, it feels like. And so that's a huge problem. You know, like they have got to, on something like this, they have got to come together and figure out, all right, what's best for the game? How do we get to the root of this issue? And preserve not only some of the stars' health for a longer period of time, but just make the game better. But as far as kind of the root cause of this, I think that there's going to have to be a lot of research done, even more than's already going on. And I have to believe it's kind of a combination of everything. I'm not really a big believer in the pitch clock being a huge issue of this. I just feel like that's a big point of contention for whatever reason with the players.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue or the root cause of the issue is a number of things. I think it's, the fact that, how we develop guys nowadays to, once they get to 100 pitches, it's like they got to come out. I think that with the influx of throwing more breaking balls, especially sliders, splitters, the sweeper pitch, I think those intensify the pressure on the elbow ligaments, and that's what I think leads to more injuries over time. I think the chase for velocity, guys who were throwing 95 a few years ago are now trying to throw 99 and 100, and I think just everybody feeling like you got to throw max effort and figure out how do I get my fastball up 2 or 3 miles an hour in the off season. I think all of those things mixed into one is basically the root cause of where we're at today. And so I don't have a clue what the solution is, but I do know that what we're seeing now feels like, honestly, as much as I hate to say it, it feels like the tip of the iceberg. I think we're gonna unfortunately see more injuries. I think
Uh-huh.
we are. Um, I don't know what else to say. I just think that we're going to see more of the same until something changes.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we're almost at the point of no return. It's not like a pitcher's going to say, well, I throw 99 now, so let me gear it back down to 92. Like that's not realistic. So
Yeah.
I don't know where we go from here.
Yeah.
Um, other than 6, 7 man rotations, limiting I don't think limiting innings is the answer. I really don't. But I don't know what the solution is. And so it'll be
Sure.
interesting to see if baseball and the players can come together on something that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about velo. That's to me probably the biggest thing. The amount of pressure that puts on your elbow. It's going to have to be a holistic thing, and it's not just at the major league level. It's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, little league up to middle school, up to
Mm-hmm.
high school. I mean, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of articles on this, trying to get ready for this episode. And you go to these showcases. You're in high school. You're trying to get a scholarship in college, and they got radar guns on you. And
Yep.
it almost doesn't matter where it goes. They just want to know how
Correct.
fast you can throw it, and then guess what? We'll hone in everything else
Right.
afterwards. I don't know if you kick out the radar guns from like high schools. I was reading an article, and I'm
And
blanking on the
spin rate. Don't forget spin rate.
spin rate. Yeah, I was gonna get into that too, but real quick on the velo, I was reading an article talking about how when you're in high school, your UCL does not listen. I want to pause real quick because I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to. I feel like if you listen to a lot of shows, you're listening to a lot of people who like are experts in this now, and that's I want to raise my hand and say I'm not an expert, but I
Right.
was doing some reading, and this is what they're saying. Your UCL it matures when you're 26, and
Mm-hmm.
these high school arms should only throw about 80.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've been around a while, these kids are out here trying to get full rides to college, or help with college. They're up there. It just starts so young, and so it's going to be a long process. I don't know what the answer is. In the short term, speaking of spin rate, you do the pre-tack balls in Japan. I tried to look up some data on that. Not a lot of stuff I could find just on the internet trying to figure out, is it more, is it less? Do we need to adjust the baseball? Obviously Glass now, pretty famous interview after tearing his UCL and having to have Tommy John just 2 starts after the sticky stuff banned in 2022. Talking
Mm-hmm.
about how he used to hold the ball like an egg, and then he had to grip it much harder and deeper in his hand. And he said he woke up the next day and hurt in places he had never hurt before. It's just, to me, it just sucks for the game, man. You got these guys that we just look forward to watching, and man, especially on Saturday when Bieber and Strider went down, and then a couple guys like thank the Lord they didn't make the list. Framber Valdez and Nick
Right.
Pivetta, like days after, come out with elbow soreness. Now that's just swelling, and so they don't need Tommy John, but they're still going to miss a ton of time, and you're dealing with. It's just so bad for the game, man. Seriously, do you remember this year in the NFL, in like the AFC, all but 4 teams, their starting quarterbacks were hurt?
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are we watching? I turn on the Titans game, like, what is this?
But you know what? I'm glad you made that point. What has the NFL done over these last few years? I know this year was kind of an anomaly as far as injuries go, it feels like. And, the NFL is as high contact as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
But what has the NFL done over the last few years? They have made rules in place to help protect the quarterback, because the NFL knows that nobody wants to watch a Kansas City Chiefs game with Patrick Mahomes on the sideline and their backup in, with all due respect to whoever the backup for the Chiefs is. You don't tune into it. I don't know. Yeah. But you don't tune into a Chiefs game not wanting to watch Patrick Mahomes do his magic, right? Whether you're a fan or not. Yeah. And so the NFL recognizes that, and they have done everything they possibly can, other than saying you can't hit the quarterback anymore, to where they are helping protect the most valuable faces of their league. And so what does baseball have to do in order to help protect some of the faces of their league? You didn't mention this. Shohei Ohtani's not pitching this year.
It's a great call.
Because he had Tommy John or whatever elbow procedure he had done last year. And so that is the face of the game. Luckily, he's able to hit too.
Yeah.
But no other pitcher is able to do that.
Yeah. Do you know who's leading the league in hits right now?
Ohtani.
It's Ohtani.
Yeah.
Is he not insane? He's insane. Yes. It's unbelievable. I wish he could have come to the East Coast. We got to catch a Braves game or something when the Dodgers come to town, dude. That would be so much fun. I don't know that I have too much more on this, except for we'll keep you posted. And just for fantasy, you just got to fight through it. It's no fun. It's no fun. You draft a team and you just want to see kind of how your draft team would come together over a year, because that's what you're doing. If you're doing it right, is you're trying to kind of paint a picture, but it's like they're taking some white paint on your beautiful picture and just throwing it at it. Right. It doesn't look as pretty, but you're like, okay, well, I can still try and sell this picture. You add some other paint from the paint wire. Dude, we could go on. We got to stop the show and just keep going with this paint analogy, man. I think we can go forever. You trade a little paint with the next guy, try and make your paint better. Okay, right. Moving on real quick. We'll touch on this. Anything else on this, Will, before we go?
This is something that I'm sure we'll probably continue to touch on throughout the year. But it's just when you have a rash of injuries this early, obviously we had some people that aren't pitching now because they got hurt last year and it bleeds into this year, but already a rash of injuries just coming out of spring training into the first week or two of regular season. And this is not good. Not good at all for the game. And that's basically where we're coming from.
100%, man. Hey, real quick, I don't know what there is to say on this, but moving on, the A's are heading to Sacramento. It's official. The A's are moving out of Oakland at the end of the 2024 season. They signed a lease to play from 2025 to 2028 with an option for 29 if the new stadium in Vegas isn't ready in Sacramento. It's like a minor league park. There's outfield grass instead of seats. It's going to be kind of interesting, man. The ball might fly out there yet. There's some fantasy ramifications for the away team and how we might look at streaming players. I don't know exactly. Above, below. You know me, Will. I'm not great at at geography, so hang in there, guys. But it's just a sad day for fans in Oakland who maybe thought this house of cards would fall down because it was feeling like that for a second. There was a lot of stuff that was kind of coming out to the contrary of them actually going to Vegas. But this is a pretty concrete step, obviously, if you're moving out of Oakland. So very sad day. Writing's on the wall. I was talking to some guys at work about this. Like, look out for the last home game there. People might take their season ticket seats. Just like in Cleveland when the Browns left and that people were like ripping seats out of that stadium. Dude, anything on Oakland leaving?
Here's the thing. The bottom line for me is, yes, it really does stink for the city of Oakland, and I feel bad for the city of Oakland and the fans there that have stuck around so long. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I don't care where this team plays. They just got to get that roster better. It is just an embarrassment of a roster right now, with all due respect to everybody in that organization. Like, do better. A's franchise. And so until they start to do that and to act like they want to win again, like, I'm kind of done with them. So again, I hate it for the city of Oakland, but this team's got to do better than that. This franchise is better than this.
Yeah. I would get Mason Miller. Dude, he is like the one bright. He is so freaking nasty, and he's gonna get 6 saves because they're not gonna be in a lot of games to win. But man, is he gross? Yeah, get him out of there. It's not gonna happen. He's gonna be there probably his whole career. Hey, man, we got to turn up the energy in here. Will, what do you say?
Let's do it.
Oh, my gosh. Are we in the middle of July? Early July? No, we're not. It's time for the Roman Candle Pick-to-Click Player of the Week. Oh, man, did we have some results come in. Will, you took Ozzy Albies. Let's talk about it. 6 for 22, 3 doubles, 5 RBIs, a 713 OPS. I took Evan Carter, 6 for 18, 3 doubles, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, a 1.095 OPS. And we had a third submission, dude, out of the YouTube comments, man. Shout out to my buddy Joe in the It's the Big podcast. Listen, he said Manny Machado was going to turn it around. Maybe next week, Joe. 4 for 23, 1 double, 174 average, but he is correct. He's got a click if that team's going to go.
Yep.
So we're looking at these three names here, man. I'd say there's an argument between Albies and Carter. Same amount of doubles. You have more RBIs. I got the homer. What are we thinking? Who's on the board first?
I'll give the edge to Carter just because I feel like the gap in the OPS, even though it's a little bit more of a limited sample size, I think the gap in the OPS is significant enough even to basically to compensate for the other parts that might have not been quite as good. So I would give a slight edge to Evan Carter. My God, he needed it. So
yeah.
So yeah, let's go Evan Carter.
Thank you, everybody. We are now. Oh no, thank you, really. Oh, please stop. Thank you. That goes on for 36 seconds, so we're gonna cut it short. We're gonna retire this segment. It's done now. But I did take week 1-0. It's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to the crown. That's what we need. And then the person wears it the whole episode. Just kidding, Will. But you're like, I'm out on this, dude. I'm gonna pick an Oakland A's batter. I don't want to wear this on my head. Hey, week 2, man. Week 2. I saw your pick. I like your pick. Tell me about it.
You know what? I mentioned earlier in the episode that I was a little bit pleasantly surprised that the Brewers have been really as good as they have out of the gate. I really expected the Brewers to take a pretty significant step back this year, losing those big stud starting pitchers that they've had the past few years. But I tell you what, the offense looks so much better than it has the last few years, and let's see if it can continue. And so I tell you what, if you're a casual baseball fan and you haven't watched the Brewers play, do yourself a favor and watch them. They've got a really fun young team. Every time they get on base, they steal, which is really fun. They're super aggressive under the new manager. And shout out to the Brewers. So on that note, I'm gonna go with their leadoff, or I think he bats leadoff most of the time now. But Christian Yelich, the former MVP Christian Yelich. Even though I don't think he's at that level anymore, I think he can still be a difference maker. He's off to a really solid start this year so far, and let's hope that the health prevails. Yeah. And but that's who I'm going this week. I'm going Christian Yelich for my pick for the upcoming week.
Dude, I love it. He has looked out of this world good, man. You said it, 324 average, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. He's even stole 2 bags. Everybody's running. This dude, we talked about Chris Bryant earlier. They're the same age, 32.
Yes.
And this guy looks all-star level good.
Yes.
And it's very exciting. That team is high up in the division, and it has a lot to do with this guy coming out. Team leader, all green on the RotoWire page. A lot of stuff to like for your pick. Let's see here, Will. I don't think it's in here. I was going to pop my Red Sox hat on, man. We're going homer for my pick this year because – or this week. Rafael Devers, okay? It's been rough out there for old Rafi, man. 3 hits in his last 21 plate appearances. Sox need him to get going. Yeah, we're off to a solid start, but we can't go without this guy. Tyler O'Neill's not going to hit 800 forever, and this is the stalwart. This is the franchise. I'm not convinced his shoulder still isn't hurt. He crushed an Oppo Taco home run and in Seattle. I think it's the second game of the year, maybe the first, and then he missed the next game with a shoulder injury. But he's a dog, man. He wants to be out there. He wants to be playing with his boys, and so we got to get him 100%. And this is his week to break out, man. Evan Carter 0 for 15, comes back at 6 hits. Now it's time for Devers. This is going to be my year in pick to click. Dude, look out, Will. Are you nervous?
I am not. But I tell you what, I like your strategy.
Yeah.
I see Cody's going for the law of averages strategy, as
That's
in
right.
if someone has a bad week the previous week, the law of averages state that it should regress to the mean. And so I like kind of where your head's at.
Hey, no, hey, don't give away my moves. Hey, real quick, another shout out to Joe. Thank you for the submission, man. We really appreciate it. That was cool. Go check him out on the It's the Bigs podcast. But yeah, if you guys want to drop it in the YouTube section or the podcast review section, we'd love to hear it, man. And we'll talk about it on the show. And if you win, shoot, you can just strut like I will this week. Big week, might be a big week for me, Will. I don't know. We'll talk about it off air. But
Yep.
man, we guys, we love you. We're at the 1 hour mark here. I mean, if you're listening to us right now, we just really appreciate that. That's really cool. And we're really, really excited for this new season. We're just thankful that you're here. Reach out to us on Twitter at BTH_Cody, at Will Sism. Tell us how your fantasy team did in week 1. How's week 2 looking? Give us you got any questions? I had a trade I needed to discuss with Will. Broke it all down with me, man. So use this man to my right or left on screen. I'm not 100% sure where he'll be yet because he knows what he's doing. Check out the YouTube channel, Bringing the Heat. Leave us a little thumbs up, comment. We'd really appreciate it. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 76 of Bringing the Heat.